What I'm doing here right now is I'm trying to take a little bit of what that corporate secret sauce was, and I'm trying to bring it to you so we can see not just what is financial modeling, but how can we use it to drive our startups and small businesses to more success. The term that we use in the corporate space, and that you'll see a lot of people who really know what they're doing say and fall in love with, is data-driven storytelling. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you're in the 11 a.m. with Kurt Walker and he's telling you how important marketing is, or if you're talking to an investor who only cares about the numbers. In order to really convince people and earn opportunities we wouldn't be given otherwise, you have to really know your story, your industry. They say know your numbers, but the other half of that is know how to tell the story around your numbers. So, I'm going to jump into it. What is management consulting? Management consulting is the hiring of a team of experts to do something for you. So if you were hiring a bunch of web developers to develop your website, or app developers to develop that for you, you're hiring a team of experts. And so there's a technology consulting space. Management consulting is a little bit more in the space of what am I supposed to do with my business? How do I get to the next level? And traditionally, management consulting only serves one type of client. The type of client that is going to sign a 6 to 8 figure contract that makes more than $10 million in their business and is using management consulting to kind of cheat code their way to the next 10, 100, maybe even $1 billion. The reason for that is because when they do strategic projects, the idea of hiring a team of experts looks like this. If I'm at Google and I'm saying, you know, self-driving cars sounds really cool. I would love to do self-driving cars, but I would love to do self-driving cars in a really efficient way. Google has enough money to slowly go out and collect all of the best in AI, all of the best in machine learning, all of the best technologists they can possibly have. But what if someone else wants to do self-driving cars? What if Marriott says, I think a self-driving shuttle would be really interesting. I want to take a look at that analysis. It would be a lot more expensive for them to compile the Google team than it would for them to say, hey, management consulting, do you have anyone who was on the Google project that I could hire? I want access to your expertise. So if corporations that have all of the money and all of the resources and all of the team members they can ask for also get to use management consulting to not have to build their teams from scratch. The instant they have an idea, they write a 6 to 8 figure check, they get the team of experts they need to implement that project, and they say, make this a great revenue stream for me. Then I'll turn it into a team of W2 members who will keep running this for me, and I will always be profitable. Wouldn't that be great for all of our businesses? If you only had to have employees when you knew that that revenue stream was stable, successful, and proven? Today, management consulting doesn't exist at a small business level because management consulting is traditionally a done-for-you approach. You hire us, we execute the entire thing for you. So my main goals today are 1, to introduce a new type of management consulting that small businesses and startups can actually afford. And 2, to give you so much value and information in this presentation that some of you can go home and do it yourself. So if any of you have any questions as we're going through, please feel free to ask, because the main goal of this is for you, to give you access to those corporate secrets and how you can take them to better your startups and small businesses. I'm going to start with, this didn't animate the way I wanted to, but we're going to do it anyways. We're going to start with what is financial modeling, which means I'm going to start with what it's not. It's not a spreadsheet. If you guys have a spreadsheet, raise your hand if you have a financial model right now for your business.
We just hired
Yay! If you've got a financial model and it looks like a bunch of numbers, if there are no words in there, or if the words aren't very clear and you're like, yeah, honestly, if you want to understand anything in the financial model, or if you want to change anything in the financial model, you have to call the person who made it. You don't actually have a financial model yet, because the financial model is not just a spreadsheet. It's not a balance sheet or an income sheet. It's not a summary of all of the numbers that are relevant to your business. It's a data-driven story, and that is the way that corporations use it. Some of you will have a plug-it-in template. That is not wrong. Everyone needs to start somewhere, and there are really fantastic websites. I'm working on building one myself, where you can create and get someone else's template So you can say, let me just drop all of the numbers in here because I can't afford to hire anyone, but I still want to have something. The downside is the financial model is not numbers. It's the story behind the numbers. So I want you guys to go through this today, trying to understand the story behind your numbers. And if you can walk out of this room saying, I know how to tell the story of my business by making a spreadsheet of numbers that has a story behind it about why it's investable, why it's going to win, why my customers are going to love me, and if you don't invest in me right now, you're missing out. Your data tells that story, but you have to shape it into doing so. So the last thing is, it's not a list of numbers or ideas. Sometimes people get stuck and they say, you said it's a story, so I'm gonna write down all of the ideas that I have, and I'm gonna put numbers against it. This is the first step to financial modeling. I will show you more about this, but it is not enough to have just words or just numbers. Data-driven storytelling is interweaving the two of them together to form a really compelling story on why your business is really phenomenal. It will help you find everything from your product market fit to your competitive advantage to how you can uniquely invest in making your competitive advantage stronger, efficiently, effectively, minimum dollars and time spent for maximum ability to win over customers and investors. All right, we're going to talk about data-driven storytelling and data-driven decision-making. They start with the same financial model basics, but the difference between decision-making is you saying, I know what's best for me and my company. Data-driven storytelling is when you turn around and you have to explain it to someone else. So we're going to use both of those terms almost interchangeably, but the difference between them is you knowing what's right because you know your own story, and that story being compelling enough for someone else to go, oh, I really get it. I'm going to go into like a deep dive for each of these slides, but from the top, the idea of using financial modeling to help startups is the same as what we do in corporate. So for the last 10 years, I ran annual processes. For some companies, they do them twice a year. And what we do is we figure out where are your opportunity areas. Where am I already winning? Where do I need to be winning? Where are the easy wins for me to be chasing? Then you go, how do I win? Because from all of the opportunities that you have, even a corporation has limited money. Even if it seems like they have all of the money they need, it's because they sat down and they said, well, we have a budget of multiple millions. This department might have a budget of $30 million to allocate, but that's still not infinite money. So the reason it feels like they always have enough money for everything that they do is because they're doing annual or biannual strategy sessions to identify all of their different opportunity areas. That's that first step, where do you win? And then they decide how they're going to win this year. I'm going to analyze all of these different projects. I'm going to decide which ones I can't afford not to do, which ones I need to go make money for because the return on investment is so amazing, and which ones we're going to leave on the table for next year, or we're not interested in ever. The last one is how to tell stories of your wins. I sit on the team that builds these business cases. So that's a little different than building a pitch for startup investors, but the storyline is actually going to end up being very similar because the idea is it's a $30 million budget that we're working within. So when we then say, I want $5 million more, we have to go explain to that executive board of directors, C-suite, whoever runs that budget approval process, it's the same level of investors who seek the same level of compelling stories that the investors startups work with are going to have to tell that same level of story and convince them the same way. When we're going to talk about data-driven decision-making, we're going to talk about 3 things that a startup could do really well in your early stages that will save you a lot of time, money, and heartache later on. If this isn't about you doing well so you can get investment today, because you've already got investment and you're already doing well, congratulations, that's a huge step for you to have taken. But if you're at the point where you get to start thinking about scaling, or if you're early stage and you want to say, I'm thinking about acquisition all the way, I want to be a really attractive acquisition offer from the get-go, data is so key to so many of our startups. Data is the competitive advantage for so many of our startups and our major asset that when we make an investor deal, we're saying it's because we're going to give you access to our data. So how can you do that right from the get-go? Here's a couple things that startups can do and do better than corporations because they're a little bit too late to fix their problems easily or cheaply. The first one is a data-driven decision-making culture. Everyone in this room, if you've decided, oh, this sounds really cool, I want to use data to make all of my decisions. If you're the only person in your company, 100% of your company is part of a data-driven decision-making culture. At the corporation I was at with over $1 billion of annual revenue, this was a startup in its 13th year. I joined in year 10 and I stayed until year 13. They don't have a 100% data-driven decision-making culture. In around year 8, they realized that they were sitting on 8 years of the best data anyone could ask for in that industry because they were one of the first organizations to do subscription. To be sitting on that much subscription data from basically the beginning of time, 2010 is when they started using a subscription-style data model and gathering all of that data. I'm going to give you one secret sauce from that corporation, and it's called cohorts. Because we were using a subscription-style sign-up, what was really interesting is it didn't matter if I was living in the same zip code and the exact same age as somebody else who was also a customer. What mattered way more is what month we signed up in. Because the way that they ran their advertising and their marketing meant that I was probably compelled to sign up based on an advertisement I saw, and whichever celebrity was associated with that. Maybe it's Kobe Bryant. Everyone in August 2020 was a Kobe Bryant fan because Kobe Bryant was the big highlight celebrity. The cohort that you joined was more important than anything else. To be able to get to that level of insight took them 10 years. We as startups can learn from those before us. And one thing that we can learn is that corporation, even though they were the first to identify subscription as a membership and turn it into something really profitable, and then to recognize they need to use that data in a very innovative and compelling way. So they created a cohort measure and started tracking that. Less than 20% of that company even looks at their analytics. Less than 5% of them use data to tell compelling stories to get funding. When you end up with a disparate corporation that does half data-driven decisions and half decisions where we don't know, we just think it's going to be good, it ends up being one, a very difficult political decision between your executives, and two, a split culture where the people who are doing the hard work of telling data-driven stories eventually go, why am I doing this? Well, our rock stars eventually left. Eventually, those who were using data found really, really well-paying jobs elsewhere. And the corporation was continuously battling, why do we keep losing fantastic people? Why do we keep not being able to run really good projects? Why do we keep having people tell us we're doing the wrong projects? Because half of the organization was doing data-driven storytelling, and half of the company was saying, I don't get access to that data. I wasn't taught how to use that data, so I'm not going to. So that slides really well into the second one, a foundation for collecting key data points. Raise your hand if you just save every data point you can possibly save for your business. Hi, all right, we see some business owners here. When you don't know what's going to be valuable, you save every piece of data. And super honestly, that is a great way to start. Until it starts making your AWS costs really ridiculous, save what you can if it's free for you to collect that data, right? But what if you go back and you realize, oh wait, you know what? Just like the cohort information, it would be really valuable if I had been tracking this data point from the beginning of time, from the very beginning of me starting my company. I can change my structures now and start collecting this data point moving forward. But how do I go back and regenerate data that I didn't collect at the very beginning? Depending on the type of data, cohort. Our company could go back and look up who was the major celebrity for each month and each session that we ran. It takes a little bit of money and a little bit of time to do that, but for a giant corporation, we need that data, we're going to go pay for it.
Have you heard of Adobe Campaign Manager?
If they weren't using it at the time because they were a startup and they were saying, how can we do this as scrappily as possible? Those first 3 years, everything from the documentation of the technology that we built to understanding the data asset that we created. It took us so long to value everything from tech debt to what I'm going to call data debt. Because not having a good foundation for your data structures, not naming your data well, not collecting good data, not collecting clean data so nobody wants to use it. Why are there all of these zeros? You shouldn't have a price point of 0. Who made this sale? Who made this negative $13 sale? I don't understand this data. I can't use it. To the structure for leveraging data. If you have access to data, but it's really hard to use, this is why data-driven storytelling is so important and why I want to talk about these. Your ability to tell data-driven stories in the future is largely based on the seeds you sow today. If you choose to make data your winning edge, if you just do these 3 things, every corporation who didn't do these things is going to be that much more interested in you. If you're looking at investment or acquisition from a corporation, sponsored capital, or building a relationship like that, if you want to sell them access to your data, you need to have good data. These are 3 of the challenges that corporate hasn't solved. That to this day, every corporation, if you tell them these are 3 things you're working on solving and that you've done it very well, you will pique their interest. What you can do with the data once you've done these 3 things is figure out how you win, where you win, and how to tell stories of those wins. This is a slide that really needed the animation. I'm so sorry. I will try and explain this one the best I can. But this is a case study of a small business that I'm working with right now. She's a girl who has a fantastic product because it's extremely sticky without requiring a lot of effort. So if going to the gym was as easy as listening to a song, you might say, oh, I can build that habit. For her, it's a mental and emotional health gym. She works with you to write a personal anthem, and you sit down, you write it out, you record it, and she turns it into a song that you listen to for the next 21 days. It's been proven that being able to do that, it's like biohacking. It's using your own voice to tell yourself what you needed to hear so that everything from you believing it to you getting a daily reminder. One of my favorite things to put in this is a question. My favorite question is, how can I help more businesses? In my daily anthem for 21 days, I'm asking myself, Sami, how can I help more businesses? How can I scale? How can I do more? That kind of mental health gym is really powerful, and it's incredibly sticky because all I'm doing is playing a song that I already wrote 21 days ago for 21 days until the message comes through. And it doesn't matter if it's, hey, you can do this, or hey, this is what you wanted to solve. Have you found a solution for it yet? And you ask your subconscious mind to solve it for you. So she started with a fantastic product to begin with. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? It sounds really cool. She didn't have the traction she was expecting on that, and more importantly, she didn't have the traction she needed on this. So she started with a product and said, I don't think I'm using the right business model for this. We start at the very top and we brainstormed a bunch of different ways. I will also say, when I work with someone, I don't come in and I say, here's all of the ways you should run your business. We talk about all of the ways you want to run your business. Her main goal was to help as many people as possible, but to her, helping is not just working with them one time. It's working with them very deeply, seeing their progress and their growth over time. And so when you add that with a great product that's very sticky, that runs for 21 days, isn't this product ripe for a monthly subscription model? We analyzed so many different models, but everything down to understanding the demand and the ability to buy from her customers, to what it is that she can provide and how much profit is on the other side of the table for her. We started with, and I'm so sorry, this is one of the ones where it animates in. That top one is the analysis of multiple different business models. The second one is taking the top ones and forecasting them out to say, what does subscription look like against a punch card, where if you buy 3, you get the 4th free? What if we take a look at different referral methods, loyalty programs? What can we do to help the customer understand the value that we're bringing them and financially incentivize them to behave differently? This is what corporations are doing. They're saying, how can I use the price point on this to get you to buy this the way that I want you to buy this? I want you to buy this for a year at a time. I want you to commit annually right now. So I'm going to give you a 23% discount if you buy a 12-month subscription instead of a 1-month subscription. That's something you can model out. You can model out all of those discounts, all of those programs. You can model out what it looks like to work with a strategic partner, a celebrity, or another brand. The final one is the revenue and profit forecast for the single one that she wants to start trying. Because the answer isn't that there's one clear model that's going to solve everything. The execution is the most important part. But before you get into that execution mindset, wouldn't it be great before you spent a single dollar or a single second to know how much money this strategic project is going to return you? To know for her, she got a clear path to success where after many people were telling her, you should do this, you should do this, you should do that, she finally got to say, I'm sorry, but for 6 months, I can't work on anything else. Because if I can solve this subscription model, I'm going to increase my annual profit by 200K. There is no project that's more valuable to me than that right now. If you bring me something that has more than 200K profit, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to think, is that project qualitatively, just with words, better than this? Can that project make me more than 200K of annual profit increase? If the answer is yes, let's model it out, let's go confirm that, and then you can consider whether or not it makes sense to switch projects, right? But from a corporate perspective, we make annual roadmaps. We're committing to our strategy for the next 12 months, and we're saying we're going to do these 12 projects, and it's going to make our profits go up by 5%, because I'm Nike, and if I make $20 billion, 5% more is a lot of money. I have to run strategic projects to do this, and I have not one of these, but 20 of these across 5 different teams, and they don't bring me 200K more profit. I'm looking for 200 mil more profit. This is how corporations find where they win. But then the next step is really fun. You get to design how you win. She knows she needs a monthly subscription. How does she do it? How does she go to market with this great financial model that she knows if she hits these numbers, she's going to make so much money? I'm going to jump into a corporation view for this, because there are 4 things that a corporation is going to do to design how they win. They already know this is a project that we need to do. They're going to compile ways to do it. Strategic partnership is not the answer, because once you say, I know I want a strategic partnership, what kind of strategic partnership? Is it a brand? Is it a celebrity? Is it a smaller celebrity? I just want an influencer? Do I want a local nonprofit? There are so many different ways. So I'm going to compile all of those. And then I'm going to go a level further. If I choose nonprofit, or if I go, you know what, I can't tell if it's a nonprofit or an influencer, go analyze both for me. Taking a look at all of those. Okay, I'm going to write down 10 top nonprofits to work with and 10 top influencers to work with. And then I'm going to go analyze how that wins. If I take this influencer's numbers, here's how many followers they have, here's how many engagements they have across social media. I want to work with them on TikTok specifically, so let me pull their TikTok numbers, but I know that this is also going to reach their Instagram and Facebook audiences. I'm going to compile all of those numbers and I'm going to analyze what's the impact of working with this influencer. Then I'm going to do that for another influencer, and then I'm going to move to my nonprofits. How does my nonprofit drive the conversion metric that I'm looking for? Whatever KPI it is, it's probably sales, but it might be something else. Maybe you're just focused on the number of followers you have. Maybe you want to increase the number of viewers you have for a major event. If I go, well, actually, I'm not focused on sales, I'm focused on viewership for a major event that needs to be attended in person. I'm going to go analyze the nonprofit numbers. And if they drive that KPI better than the influencers did, I'm going to identify the way to win that's most advantageous. The last thing that I'm doing is an ROI calculation. Because the idea is, it costs money to do all of this, right? Maybe you have a relationship with a nonprofit and you can say, hey, I can set this up for free. Maybe you have a relationship with an influencer and you get to go, I can set this up for free. And then you look down at your numbers and you go, I wanted 1 million sales. In order for me to get 1 million sales, here's all of the people I can work with for free, and it's going to take me this much of me and my team's time. If that's my entire time and it won't get me to 1 million, I have to start seeing how else can I win. I might take a mix of free and paid opportunities because it gets me to my goal. I might do a mix of free and paid opportunities because this free opportunity actually costs me too much time, and this paid opportunity means some money goes out the door, but I get to keep my entire team and have them do the other 5 free opportunities.
Is there some quantification of opportunity cost? That's what you're really talking about, right? Is sort of implied or opportunity cost. If I spend my time doing this, I won't spend my time doing that. Do you incorporate that into your modeling when you start talking somehow?
Absolutely, and I'll do it in 2 different ways, because for a corporation, they're so used to paying that time cost that they're actually going to do, the way that I personally do this is I'm actually going to get the salaries for every member on that team. And when I build out these projects, I'm going to write down the key team members that we're requesting for it, because these are strategic projects. We build these out for projects with over $1 million investment. So when we're doing a project like this and I'm writing it out, $1 million cash investment, plus the salaries of the team, plus any other time and resources that we need for all of this, I'm calculating them out in a full ROI analysis that says, here's what we do. The item that makes it a little different is when I'm working with a group of team members that's transferable. Like maybe I'm saying the cost of vendors. I'm going to outsource this to a group of consultants. That's a lot easier to make a dollar figure. Unfortunately, raise your hand if you've ever had a team member that you can't replace. Like, I can't replace this person on my team. I couldn't make anybody else do this. It just won't work. When you have a key team member like that, corporations get themselves in this type of trouble. And part of it is tech debt, and part of it is data debt. If only one person knows your financial model, you can't ask that person to do something else. So I was that roadblock some of the time, and there were other roadblocks on our teams because we were a corporation where we overemphasized certain roles, and we kept letting rock stars do hard projects. So what does that mean? We had a person whose name was Marcelo. Marcelo can only work on 3 projects at a time, 2 if it's really hard. So if the project requires that specific team, it goes into a completely different bucket for analysis. Every project that requires that team member has to go into a bucket of analysis with other things from that team that require that team, because we can't buy that knowledge from anywhere. It's all internal knowledge. It's not documented anywhere. We've tried multiple times to train up mini Marcelos, and the answer is they all leave. Because the culture of the corporation didn't support all of that growth. Once you figured out the base processes, we didn't have the data, we didn't have the technology, we didn't have all of the right processes in place to make someone who is a rock star want to stay. So, but that's a really, really great question. And another way that I would state it is financial modeling is sometimes saying, here's a qualitative question, something that's using words. And no one would ever say like, oh, you can go analyze that and return a number. A corporation will go analyze that and return a number. Even if it's not the most accurate number that they could possibly make, they still need it to be a number, because it's not a startup that has 5, 20, or 50 people. It's a corporation that has 50 different departments, and we're going to stack rank the projects that come out of 50 different departments against each other. I have to know the ROI. I have to know what I'm missing out on. Otherwise, it's just all of the VPs of 50 different departments saying, fund me. So I want to talk about a couple myths, because we keep saying that corporations can do anything. They have all of the money, they have all of the resources, they have all of the team. We also say they have easy access to data. This is true and this is not true. They have more access to data because they can afford to buy data. But like I talked about earlier, they have less clean data than we do. You guys get to start at the very beginning, or you still have time to go back and cheaply fix things. They've already collected 13, 15, 100 years of data. Going back to fix that, the problem isn't that they have hard access to data. It's that the data they have access to isn't good quality. Don't think that you can't do some of these things just because we're the underdogs. We have just as many competitive advantages as we have things to compete against them in. So the second thing is, corporations have teams for this. They have teams that constantly crunch numbers. How could I possibly compete? We just talked about knowing where you win. You only have to win where you need to win. Everything else you don't have to worry about. If they're crunching numbers on absolutely everything, including things they don't need to crunch numbers on, because they have such a large organization, they need structure and engines to make it work. But we get to be scrappy. We get to be agile. We get to choose where we win, and once you know where you win, you get to double down and say, I'm only going to focus my priorities and my resources there. That means you get to move yourself forward a lot more quickly. You get to move the needle really quickly because you know where to move the needle, you know how to move the needle, and you know that you don't have enough resources to do anything else, so you're just gonna focus on moving the needle. It's a myth to say that we can't do this because we're limited in our resources. Corporations are also limited, and they have their own disadvantages, which means that we have our own advantages in this space. So the last thing that I'm going to address is easy access to capital. Corporations have budgets. That's different than saying they have easy or free access to capital. And in particular, the thing that is always going to happen is that they have to fight each other for capital. Within the same company, 2 different VPs or 2 different C-suite executives are going to sit down at one point and say, okay, well, we have limited capital. What are we going to give up? It's not that they have easy or unlimited access to capital. It's that they're more used to figuring out how to communicate within themselves for what they're going to give up. If those 2 C-suite executives are sitting down and they're saying, well, I want this because my team wants this, it's going to take a little while to get somewhere. It's a very relationship-based, politics-style conversation. Go for it.
I'm curious, is one way to sort of roll up those 3 points that it's sort of the myth to think like, oh, that company is so big, they have way more resources than we to throw at it. Because really, no matter how big or small you are, everybody has stretched themselves thin. And so really, it's more about making the right decision about where to focus.
That is absolutely a huge part of it. And the way that corporations figure out where to focus is through doing the numbers and then analyzing the numbers, turning it into a story. Because the idea is when you are sitting in that room and saying, okay, we all know that we are a little stretched thin. We all know that we have limited resources. I was in the room when a CTO and a CEO were making a decision on a $3 million project I brought them. This was also a project that we did out of our budget cycle. So we're sitting there and they know that at the end of the day, all of the money the company makes goes into their pockets, right? So they're not making this decision just from the perspective of, well, my team wants this. Your team can want this, but if you're going to give up $100 million of extra profit this year, or $200 million of profit across the next 3 years, at some point that executive has to make a decision for their company, right? We're going to come back to this again, but it's not that they have easy access to capital. It's that they train themselves on how to tell the story of how they distribute capital. They say, you have to bring me this type of information for me to approve giving you this type of money. If it's 250K, that's a different tier than when you break 1 mil. When you break 1 mil versus when you're at 5 mil, it's a different tier of conversation. At the end of the day, that CTO sat down and said, I can't explain tech debt to you any further, but these are the numbers that Sami calculated in terms of ROI. If you're looking at these numbers and you know that what it's going to mean is that we're going to lose our data advantage to not do this project, how can we find $3 million to do this project? They sat down, they looked at each other, and it was a very, very quick conversation. The number was 6 retail stores. If we give up 6 retail stores, we can get the money to go do that project, and I'm willing to do it because the profit that 6 retail stores would bring me is less than the return I would get from doing this project here. To be able to tell data-driven stories and get to the point where you're able to compare 2 completely different stories. I want to open 6 physical retail locations. I want to improve our tech stack. How do you compare those 2? Data-driven storytelling is the ability to take those things that seem like you could never get a numerical answer and get them to that point so that we can make data-driven decisions. So then the last thing we want to do is we want to tell stories about that, right? I'm going to tell this from a corporate perspective because we needed to get that funding, right? We actually got those $3 million of funding. We got it off cycle. We got it in 3 weeks instead of 3 months like the process normally requires. But the reason I'm going to do it this way is because it translates exactly to investors. They want to hear your story. Have you ever heard that people invest in founders because of who that founder is? Yeah? So it's your story that you're telling. And when your story doesn't have any numbers, have you ever seen someone pitch and not give any numbers and the investor be like, I need to see your numbers? If you bring them a data-driven story in your pitch, you are telling them who you are, why you made this, and why you're going to be successful. And you're putting the numbers that will make you win into that pitch because you know where you win, you know how you win, and you know how to tell the story that you're going to win. So when it comes to the corporate world, we do this on an annual or biannual basis. And the challenges that we face include other projects they can fund. In a corporation, they're not looking at just one project and saying yes or no. They're looking at the sum of all projects and saying, which do we move forward? If we have a 30 million budget, but there's only $20 million of good projects, the problem is not the capital. The problem is how many good projects they have. Has anyone ever heard someone say, the problem is not that we don't have enough capital, it's that we don't have enough founders that are good enough to invest in? Oh, that's a data-driven storytelling moment right there. You need to tell them why you're a founder that's worth investing in, and the number of founders that leverage data-driven storytelling is very, very few. A lot of them come from really rich backgrounds where they worked in corporate and they implemented this before. So how do they tell that story? They show a slide with their entire team and all of their expertise and all of the companies they worked at. But if you can show them instead of telling them, by using data-driven storytelling, it makes it a lot more powerful. The second thing that happens is when we're doing this corporate annual review, they're executives, but they have friends at the company. They have people who have personally reached out to them and said, I really, really need to do this project. Doing this project is going to catapult my career. It's going to change my resume. I need to do this project. Please approve it. There are personal interests in the corporate world as well. And data-driven storytelling has to get past that. Because if you're sitting there going, this is a personal interest of mine, I will go to bat for this person. I will absolutely go to bat for this person. But then someone else comes up with a deck that says, in order to go to bat for that person and give them a $5 million project instead of me, this is what we're going to miss out for the company. Having the data to be able to say, here's what we miss out on, this is why I need $5 million, and here's what it will bring us, that's the data. Turning it into a story and saying, here's the data, this is what we need it for, here's how we are going to run the project, here's how long the project's going to take, here is the result that you get for the investment that you put in. How many of you have pitched that way? Z, of course. Is it more powerful than just using the numbers? Is it more powerful than just telling the story?
You prepped me.
Because the sum of those two things tells an incredibly compelling story that can overcome the fact that they have other projects they want to invest in and that some of those they have personal interests in. Because at the end of the day, they have a duty to make the best decision for the company. That's what you're going towards. There's a VC that I really admire who used the term shared greed. When we can use shared greed, and the reason I love it so much is because I'm a female founder. I'm a double minority, and when he used this term, he said, shared greed is what overcomes bias. When you think, I can't get funded, when you think, I can't get my project to get approved, when you think, I can't do this, because there's some sort of bias working against me, because I'm the underdog, because I'm not supposed to have this opportunity. Find the shared greed. Get the numbers to prove how much the shared greed will make us all more wealthy. And then tell the story of how you can help enable and unlock all of the profit that comes with doing that shared greed item. So, how do you story to investors? You do it the same way. You know that investors have other projects they can fund. You know that investors have personal interest in other people. Have you ever heard of someone say, oh yeah, I wrote a check just because they went to business school with me? That's a personal project right there, right? How come they can get 25K when they don't have any revenue, they don't have a slide, they don't have anything, but you wrote them a 25K check? Well, I can tell a data-driven story and say, I want 25K too, because I can prove the shared greed, and at some point you have a duty to, maybe it's your fund, maybe it's a duty to yourself. And you sit there and you go, I've seen VCs do this. I can't do this with the fund's money because you don't have the data. You can't prove that story. It's not tight enough for me to invest using the fund's money. But I like you. I want to do it with my own. If you do a really, really good job with data-driven storytelling, the whole world is your oyster. Everybody will listen because what you're actually doing is you're creating FOMO. You're using data-driven storytelling to say, look how great an opportunity this is. Don't you want to get in at Uber when it's only 1 mil? Oh yeah, that would be amazing. I want in on that. Can you show me how you're at 1 mil right now and you're the same as Uber and you're going to get there? Yes, here's my data. Let me tell that story for you. Let me create that FOMO. Let me create this emotion of what you're going to miss out on if you don't invest with me now. And I'm using the sum of the data and the story to do so. So, frequently asked questions. Oh yes, go for it.
I just wanted to jump in to really emphasize that point because I've seen it from the other side. I'm a white guy, and one of the founders of my company is an Indian woman, and we've been calling banks and stuff, talking about different kinds of financing, the economy, et cetera. And it struck me how much of a difference it made to have me coming into a room, not necessarily because, like often they're audio calls, not necessarily because the people respond to me differently, but because I have a cultured sense of shared greed. I'm inclined to come in and go, oh, I'm going to make a ton of money. Don't you want to get in on this? And she was really inclined to get on the call and feel like people were ready to kick her out of the room. So I really just wanted to emphasize how much of a tangible difference I've seen that make from my end too.
Yeah, that's a great example. And again, I only have my own perspective to share. I'll share as much of it as I can. But the idea that it took me 10 years to build this business because I didn't think that their bias against me would be, I thought that the bias against me would be so strong that I would present as someone who is too young, too inexperienced, and that I needed to be able to tell a data-driven story. I needed to be able to stand here and say, I have 10 years of experience doing this. That's what it took for me to be able to say, I think I can add value here. Every single one of us can stop anywhere along the way and say, I have the data already, or what can I do to go get the data? It doesn't have to be that you wait 10 years. So I'm actually going to jump into FAQ because the number one question that I get asked is how do I get access to numbers to analyze? If only I had numbers. If someone could tell me what the market size for my specific industry is, if someone could tell me what the market cap for the 3 different niches I'm interested in specializing is, I would be able to tell you how to grow my company because I would know which niche is the best one for me to go after. So why won't someone give me the data? Because the data is not cheap to get. We're going to start at the very top. You can buy data. And the way that corporations buy data is, one, they identify the data that they need, and then they go figure out how to go get that. Sometimes someone has already published really general data that's very helpful, and corporations almost always have annual subscriptions to something like that. When you're big enough, you have a subscription to Forrester. Statista is actually really cheap, so if you want to start somewhere, Statista is a good one. Annual reports that come out from a number of different places, and my favorite one is, who does the Magic Quadrant again? Gartner. Gartner is really fun because there's a lot of analysis there. You can also be a Gartner client. If you are a Gartner client, will you show up higher in their Magic Quadrant? It is something that people are still doing analysis on. So not only can you buy data, but you can also tweak data because Gartner doesn't just buy data, they also make data. They make these quadrants. They make analysis that says, here are the top vendors, here are the top innovators, here are the top disruptors. It's so interesting to know that a corporation can do this, but isn't it more interesting to know that you can too? Raise your hand if you've made data for your company already. What kind of data did you make?
Social media, outreach, and matching to the avatar desired.
Awesome. I saw one over here.
Yeah, well, PTO and sort of hours worked kind of data for like your state resource students.
Okay, I saw one more in the back.
Maintenance data for training manufacturers.
What kind of data?
Maintenance data?
Maintenance data? Okay.
Mostly consumer info, how they define who the consumer is, what their incentives are.
Oh, I'm going to give you some interesting ones then. All right, the number one source of a corporation making data, A/B testing. And it takes a lot of money because really, if I could spend $100,000 to go buy an analysis, most small businesses would be like, are you kidding me? I can't afford that. But when we do the A/B testing analysis, if I were to take everyone in the winning sector, A or B, and put them all through the other version, if version A converted at 10% and version B converted at 15%, sometimes the money I lost in opportunity is more than $100,000. And that's actually what drives us to say, therefore, we need to build this new feature so we can do A all of the time. We need to be converting at 15% instead of 10. And now that I can quantify this, because I went out and I made the data, now I can go back and say, let's go fund this project. Other ways that you can make them: user testing. When you go reach out to users and you're getting feedback, even if it's qualitative, the sum of multiple users is going to be a data point. And the idea is, if you're a small business and your CTO or CEO is on the phone doing your user reviews, maybe it's a little expensive, way more so than you think it is, to go get that data. Sometimes buying it is the right answer. And again, I'm going to encourage you all to start with small pieces. Like, there is free data available. Statista is a fairly affordable, smaller one. But we'll talk about a couple other options on how can small businesses band together in terms of getting access to data. Because we're going to talk about researching them. Researching them often leads to a paywall, but that does not mean that someone else has not already done your research. I will also say, if you blend researching them and making them together, sometimes the data that you're looking for is behind a layer of stuff. I'll talk about government data, and then I'll talk about publicly available data. So the government will sometimes make data publicly available, and you can go through a large database and get everything from census data to just interesting data points about things that you might not think are relevant, but someone else has already taken that core data, analyzed it, turned into a report, and is now charging you a lot of money for it. If you want to go get that same type of data, you can research the core data. You can take the core data and make it into the same analysis you would have bought, and then you can say, cool, I spent a lot of time instead of a lot of money, but that's what I have available, so it's the route that I have to go. The second one is going to be publicly available data feeds. My favorite one to pick on is Twitter, because they have a decent API for this. But sometimes, instead of conducting hundreds of user tests, you can do everything from do kind of sort of user tests on Twitter and see what people are already saying about your product. Or if you're really, really early stage, you don't even do user studies on your own product. You do user studies on your competitors. What are people saying on Twitter about my competitors? And how can I use that data to feed what my product needs to look at? Research and making data instead of buying data is an option. The last thing that you can do is know them already. When you see a slide that says this person has 15 years of experience, why is it so compelling to invest in that person? It's because they already know so many things. You cannot beat. If I wanted to know anything about psychotherapy and the numbers behind it, I would go ask C. She knows them already. I don't need to go research them. I don't need to go buy them. They're right here in front of me. And so if you know these numbers already, it can help a lot. So this section on FAQs could also be renamed, Why is the game rigged against small business owners? Because corporations do all four of these. They hire the experts who already know the numbers. They hire the experts who can do the research. They hire the experts who can make the data, and then they buy data on top of all of that. That is their data advantage. They might not have done it fantastically from the beginning. They might not have great foundations to build them on, and they might not have the culture of using it all the time, but they have way more ability to go get the data. So we need to lean on our ability to use the data. In terms of getting data, once you have data, what else could you do? We could share data with each other. Everything from group purchases and research, saying we're all small businesses. If you've ever seen a mastermind, if a mastermind was willing to share data with each other, that would make it more valuable. If you're making your own data and you're sharing that data with each other, you can all grow a little bit faster, because instead of investing one time for just your company, you can invest one time for multiple companies, right? So then isn't the ultimate solution to have one company go get all of the data and share it all with each other? That's actually why management consulting is so incredibly broken, because we do this on a regular basis. We make the data, we research the data, we know the data already, then we get hired by a corporation to go make more data. We're sitting here as the owner of all data, that we've bought all of this data so we can go do more analysis, that we've made so much data, we've researched so much data, we know so much data, and someone comes in and says, I need to do something. I don't need to go get more data. I just need to go recompile that which I already had access to. I can take you to market more quickly. I can take you to market more efficiently. I can take you to market with more complete analysis than you could do on your own, because you might not choose to buy a report that you don't even get to look inside before you buy, but I've already got, so why not leverage that data point? This is the competitive advantage you're up against. That doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that you need to go in saying, I gotta do this. This is where I win. I'm gonna go hard on the section where I win. I'm going to make sure I do it well, because I only need to win where I win. I'm an innovator. I'm a disruptor. I'm gonna do that really well in the area that I innovate and disrupt in, and everything else will follow. Two more sections, and then I promise it's only questions. And I am going to go through these fairly quickly, because we love talking to each other and learning about specific things for our own business, right? So the second question I get asked a lot is, when should I build my financial model? And specifically, a lot of people think it's too late. The top section is, when do corporations build financial models? They have 3 different types of financial models, actually. The first one is their big projects. So if you are doing a strategic investment, for my corporation, it was something over $1 million. We do a special financial model just for that. The second one is annual and biannual planning. So on top of our regular, our big strategic projects, we have regular planning, and we do this at a department level. What that means is each department gets to pick to add or drop things within their budget. It's only when they go over budget that we start to have to tell, oh, this is why I need more budget type of stories. But if you're asking for a meaningful amount of more budget, or you're doubling the size of your team because you've gotten so many more requests this year, all of those are going to require a financial model. The last one, and I'm going to explain all of the words here because they're weird. Monthly revenue reconciliation. What does that even mean? It means that at the beginning of the year, I forecasted out what my revenue for the year was going to be like. I said that based on all of these strategic projects happening at these specific timeframes, we're going to launch this product this time. We're going to go live with this celebrity this time. We're opening a new store here, and we're going to launch a new brand there. Based on all of those numbers, I set financial targets for each month. Monthly revenue reconciliation is the idea that after the month ends, I sit down and I go, how did I do? Execution is everything. Financial modeling is not just writing down a bunch of numbers and saying, well, that'll happen. The part where it actually becomes real is when you go out and you make your own data and you A/B test it and say, yes, I can actually get 50 customers in my first month. And now that I've gotten 50 in my first month, 100 in my second month is totally doable. I already have the customer feedbacks to know that that's doable. So yes, in this year, I am going to hit all of these numbers based on the data that I have right now. And when I calculated at the beginning of the year, that said I was going to get 200K more of profit this year. I'm on track for that. That's what monthly revenue reconciliation is about. It's checking to see where you are versus where you thought you were going to be, and using every month as an opportunity to get you back on track. How many of your startups do a monthly check-in like that? Oh yeah, okay, corporations are doing things different now, right? It's because they have big teams and lots of money. When should you build? I'm going to call out 5 major areas, but basically the idea is, yes, build a financial model whenever you can, but really it's around opportunity and risk. When you're looking at a lot of opportunity on the table, or you're about to take on a lot of risk, that's when corporations also want to build financial models. It's because they're investing $1 million that they care about the financial model here. Show me what I'm going to get for it. So before you launch your company, maybe it's a good idea to build a financial model and know what your direction is, know how much money is on the table. If you're leaving a job to start a company, isn't that a lot of risk? Maybe you just want to know what the opportunity on the table is. So you're doing the analysis so you can figure out how much opportunity do I have on the table. Before you launch your product, if you're about to launch your product, isn't one of the things you want to know that you're priced correctly? Pricing strategy is one of the core elements of financial modeling, because in order for me to build a financial model that tells me about your revenue and everything on there, I need to know the price of your product. I need to know how you're monetized. And if I take a look at that and I say there's so much opportunity in the way you've chosen to monetize, wouldn't you wish you did the financial model before then? Wouldn't you wish that you went to market with the price points that make the most sense for your revenue goals, for your accessibility goals, for how many people you want to reach this year? All of those things you can model out before you even spend $1 or a second on it. The next one I'm going to cover is investors or bootstrapping go-to-market. I put them in the same category because you're essentially asking someone else to give you money. It doesn't matter if it's individuals buying your product or an investor buying a portion of your company. When you're making that first sale of your company from an investor standpoint or bringing in revenue from a customer standpoint, you want to have a go-to-market strategy that's really, really tight, because that go-to-market strategy is either built around 100,000 customers or one investor. And you want to know that the valuation that you're bringing, everything from your pricing strategy to, we've talked about capital sequencing before, the idea that you get one form of capital and then you go to the next. I'm going to talk about the opposite of that. So if in capital you could do something the wrong way, in releasing products, you can also release products the wrong way. It's called product cannibalization. When one of your products eats into the profit of another one, especially if it's a product that would have brought you more profit. This is a thin line to balance, but if you know that Sami would buy your high-end product that's more expensive and would make you more profit, how long do you wait before you launch a lower-end product that's more affordable that everyone else will buy, but you can't explain why the premium version is that much better than the affordable version? A lot of companies go to market with something premium first. Part of the reason they do this is because it's actually cheaper and easier to build a premium product first. I get higher quality materials to pick from. I have more salary to pay my developers. It's possible to go to market with a premium product first. And only after I have all of the assets for that premium product to leverage can I build an affordable version. But some of those people will choose to wait on launching their affordable one. Or they'll look at their affordable one and say, okay, I could sell this for $100 and still make profit. But because my premium item is only $200, I need to sell this at $160. If I don't get as many sales as I want to, that's fine. I can always discount the price later. But I can't cut into the sales of my premium product so early on. I'm still paying off all of the development costs on it. All right, we talked about major investments. Any type of major investment counts. And then the last one is going to be before you sell. That is both a huge opportunity and a huge risk. Those are all great times for you to build a financial model. But anytime you're sitting there and going, I wish I had more direction because I'm about to look at a major opportunity or I'm going to take on major risk, a financial model might be helpful for you. So you can tell a data-driven story on why that decision is the right one. The last one is, can I do it myself? And the answer is yes, yes, absolutely yes, you can build a financial model yourself. Not only can you build it yourself, it is so much better to build it yourself than to not do it at all. There are 3 sections of items that I would strongly recommend to anyone who wants to do this themselves. The first one is free seminars, something like this. There are seminars where, and I actually originally wanted to do this, but was talked down from it. I wanted to do an impromptu financial modeling session where you guys would shout business ideas at me and I would build it live with you. There are seminars where they'll teach you Excel modeling and basic skills like that, but the main reason why it's hard to find a seminar where you do something like that is I can only do a version where you shout business ideas and I build it with you. I can't bring you any of my client NDA data, and so that's why you won't see as many seminars on how to build it for your business exactly. There are a lot of free resources. Everything from the plug-it-in templates we talked about at the beginning to guides on how to build a financial model from beginning to end. The business model might be a lot different from yours, but if you can read through it and understand it, you can get yourself more of the way there. But the last one is going to be, and this is a very, very specific recommendation, but Coursera has really good Excel modeling courses. So if you're saying, I don't even know, like I'm standing here and as I talk about all of these things, I have a spreadsheet in my mind, I have formulas that I'm filling it in with. It's everything from sum ifs to sum products to mults. If those don't mean anything to you, a 4-week course on Coursera would probably help a lot because it doesn't just mean that I'm building good models. They're efficient models that are very fluid. If your financial model doesn't have the ability for you to change one number and everything else changes with it, it's not a financial model, it's a spreadsheet. So the question is it cheaper to not do it yourself? And I'm going to argue that for a good chunk of people it is. And it's because I value time really heavily. The value of your time, is this the right thing to outsource? I outsource everything that has to do with development. You will never see me write a line of code. I am not good at that. It will take me so much more time to code than someone who actually knows how to code. But the thing that I value more than time is energy. The value of my energy. If I have a couple hours late at night and all I can do is lay in bed and watch TV because I am done for the day, that's the value of energy. And when you're out of energy and you can't do anymore, you're the only CEO of your company. You're the only CTO of your company. You have your job to do. Sometimes it's a good idea to outsource the one that you can't wear anymore. So, and this is cut off early too. The value of your energy is this something you enjoy doing? If it's not something you enjoy doing and it saps your energy to even think about these numbers, maybe that's a good thing to outsource. The last thing, and this speaks a little bit to quality, is the cost of opportunities missed. If I were to code something, I might code something way more terribly than if I brought an actual developer in. The difference between our quality and how much it gets me in terms of customer revenue, wow, that's a quantifiable number right there. The cost of the opportunity that I miss out on is the difference between the money I make when I use my version of the product and the money that I make when I use someone who actually knows how to make this product. That is a number right there, and that's what financial modeling does. It takes questions that you don't think could have a numerical answer, and it forecasts one anyways. Because even if you're in the right magnitude, that gives you a direction on how to make your decision, instead of just feeling it out blindly in the dark. So I'm going to end with a plug, because I did not do it this morning, and otherwise I do it every time. I love Tech Alley. I really, really love Tech Alley. I've been coming to Tech Alley for 5 months now. This is my first time that I'm speaking, and the only reason I'm doing it is because 3 months ago, Joshua Levitt started asking for donations. And it took so long to get any nominal number of donations. Eventually, one person felt badly enough, and they donated 4 figures themselves. Despite it, so including that 4-figure donation, Tech Alley has raised less than $3,000 to date. It has been around for 2 years, giving us everything from free coffee in the morning to free information. They secure these venues for us to use for free, and they feed us at lunch, they feed us at dinner, and they give us startup launch parties. The level of commitment and what Tech Alley has given back to us is tremendous. So I sat down with Joshua Levitt and I said, I want to help. I'm going to make available my financial model. When I build a basic financial model, I don't do it the way that corporations do. I don't charge the way that traditional management consulting does. I genuinely believe that I'm a good enough financial modeler that I can build any basic financial model with 30 hours of my time, and I'm charging $50 an hour for that. So I build a basic financial model for $1,500. The reason that's relevant is because for the first 10, and there's already been a couple people who've claimed this, for the first 10 people who jump on that offer, I'm going to give you a $500 discount because you're investing in yourself, and I want to reward that. You're investing in yourself, you're investing in your company, and on top of all of that, because you're coming in from Tech Alley, you're going to invest in your community. For every person, regardless of whether you're one of the first 10 or not, I'm going to donate $500 to Tech Alley. My goal is to get Joshua Levitt 10 grand from this donation drive across Vegas, Reno, and Denver, because we all need this help, don't we? If you could pay $1,000 out of pocket for something like this and know that 500 of it goes to Tech Alley, I'm trying to make it hard for you to not invest in yourself. I'm trying to make it hard for you to not give back to your community. But more than that, I'm trying to give you the information to understand what corporations are doing that we might not be thinking about today, because it could revolutionize the way that you grow your business. I'm going to be available. I'm going to answer any questions. I also know that our startup launch party is going to happen in 20 minutes. But are there any overall general questions I can answer for everyone before we break? I don't know if that means I did a really good job or if there's just too much content.
We have got to ask questions.
Thank you so much. I'm going to leave this slide up. It doesn't have my email. I might be using an old version of this deck. Please feel free to reach out. You can come get my contact information. And if you want to be one of those first time, we do still have a couple slots left.